Once again, this is Ken Kibler, Director of Client and Business Support for eTruckBiz. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Our leader, Jeff Walzak, is back today, so he'll be taking the reins of this session, and we'll cover some of the normal topics as well as a little bit more deep dive into some of the CSA stuff involved with Network 2.0. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Jeff Walzak.
We just need to make sure that we tell you that eTruckBiz is not endorsed, sponsored, approved, or otherwise affiliated with FedEx. eTruckBiz is here to help you organize, optimize, and maximize your business so you can capitalize on Network 2.0. But keep in mind, coming up here very soon, would like to invite all of you on here to our new 2-day seminar, Capitalizing on Network 2.0. Oddly enough, day one goes over the economics of Network 2.0. Day two, we're going to focus on some of the fundamental things that you, BCs, and especially drivers need to do to help you out, get you to be able to capitalize on Network 2.0. There's some information there about what's coming up during the seminar. You can register for the seminar at training.etruckbiz.com. All right, so as we always do every week, we want to take a look at the volume trends. And so, I don't know, maybe there was finally a weather impact, but this isn't looking too good here. We fell below the trend line a little bit on pickups. And on the delivery side, ooh, that's not too good. That's looking a little worse. So we did have a pretty good bounce back from, we had peak, then we had the low after peak, and then a really good bounce back, but now it's getting worse. But really the thing to look at here is the productivity. So that looks good. Routes dispatched are down, but that's not so good. Stops per dispatch.
Yeah, that's a big dive. I mean, from 100 plus to 95.
Yeah.
Just take 5 stops times $4 of revenue. That's $20 per dispatch difference.
That's a significant amount of money right there. Another thing to look at here, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, but if you take out peak, which by the way, we were up over 120 stops per dispatch for peak, so it can be done. But if you look at this productivity trend and even back down to here, that's not going the right way. Very troubling. So take a look at what's going on in the news. How about a little good news? So volume's down, productivity's down. How about some good news? There might be some good news coming up. Our friends at Susquehanna give us all kinds of information from Wall Street. And if you take a look at this, looks like the rail volume week 3 of this year was up 25%. 25% is a significant increase in rail traffic. Now, I don't know if the rail gets affected by weather like everything else does, but that's a pretty good move. So hopefully we'll see it in the operation here pretty soon. Okay, everybody knows Network 2.0 is on the way, and there was a memo. If you saw this or not, some of you did, maybe some of you didn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to recap this real quick. So far, 80, not 130 that was in the email, but 80 terminals have been optimized so far. 130 is the terminal count in Canada. So it says here, this new district planning approach means an entire district plans for integration at the same time. So this is a bolder move, right? Instead of just taking individual terminals that they were basically experimenting with, now they're going to start moving whole districts over, which a lot of already, but that actually paves the way for larger moves to come, not necessarily through the rest of this year, although it might, but definitely next year. But there's still a lot coming this year. So they have been very consistent about notifying service providers in advance of these moves. So if it's coming to you, they've been good about letting folks know. There's some things that they said, as previously stated, integrated service operations will require optimizing at market level, covering several ground and express stations. So that's a little bit of FedEx that says they're closing some of these terminals. So we already knew that. If you come here once a week at least, we've been talking about it. The next thing is integrating ground and service and express service volumes and reallocating zip code service areas between facilities. So terminals, not only are contractor CSAs changing, but in a lot of cases, terminal service areas are changing. Now, the question is, the rumor out there, if there's a rumor, or the word out there might be, terminal service areas might change more than once over the next several years. Keep that in mind. Now, one of the things that happens when you face Network 2.0 integration, optimization, you'll need to negotiate a new contract with volumes and charges that are unfamiliar to you, right? So if they change your CSA, that's going to change your volume. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Definitely the characteristics of a CSA change. We want to let you know that because you have to negotiate a new contract going into an optimized CSA, that's why we developed the optimized CSA analysis, and you'll want to get this along with your contract negotiation as you step in to the new area. It's a big deal. These areas significantly change from a revenue standpoint as you get into Network 2.0. All right, another thing here, now this is real important. It says also, while many areas in the network offer opportunities for growth and added revenue, there will be service providers in certain locations that will not be offered continued contracting opportunities. This impact will vary based on the unique characteristics of each service provider company, as well as each location and broader market. For those service providers, FedEx will provide months of advance notice, transition incentives, information about open CSAs and other contracting opportunities, and options for selling vehicles. Folks, it's happening. It's happening. It's out there. I don't know if we have anybody on there that's been through this yet, but need to be aware that just because you have a CSA today doesn't mean you'll have one later. Now, most folks will have one, and we're not trying to cause a panic, but let's just say this: if you're bronze, you might want to get out of being bronze.
Hey, Jeff. Hey,
yes.
Real quick, that's your safety tier 2. Safety tiers, I think 1 and 2 need to be pushing to get higher, and that includes passing your vetter KIs. You got to pass those. They do make an impact. Your hours of service violations, accidents. Take a look at all that stuff. What do you have in place for your safety plan? What's going on with your team and your safety?
Okay. And overall, we'll just make this blanket statement. Line haul, because it appears that there's more lanes, if you want to call it that, they'll call them nodes. So far, line haul is coming out pretty well in the whole transition. There haven't been any line haul folks that have lost their contract, but that's a good thing for if you're a line haul person. So what does all this mean? What is going on here, right? We just told you better watch it if you're bronze and there's some things happening. However, there's opportunity for those who are willing to embrace change. Most of you who are here right now know that we've been out in front of all this for years. We've been trying to tell you that this is what was going to happen. Shoot, Ken, how many years ago did we start telling folks about this?
The express stuff, I'd say 5 to 6 years ago. First thing we said, it would be going to 7 days.
So this goes all the way back to when they changed the contract from the old what was the legacy contract to the ISP model. That's actually, they had to get that done first before they could do all of this. So anyway, we're going to tell you something else again, right? So we told you all that was going to happen, but we think we know what's going to happen here. If you're willing to make some adjustments in how you think about, plan, and execute your business, you could be one of the ones that end up with life-changing and likely generational businesses. Or what we mean by generational, you could build something so substantial that you would probably, I don't know if you'd sell it or not, you could, but you could have generations of your family running these businesses. We're not talking about small. A million to $5 million business is not that small of a entity, but we're talking some very large possibilities are going to be presenting themselves here. That's what we see. Why? Because Network 2.0 is all about FedEx preparing to focus on its, and really your core competencies. And in the process, it's going to generate significant opportunities for selected service providers. Now, why did we say selected? If you recall, those of you that have been around, there was a time when you could have one truck and you could just be a contractor and you ran one truck. There was also a time you could have less than 5 trucks or 500 stops a day. Those folks are all gone now. Either they found the door or they consolidated and got in, or they became bigger. So this is part of the selection process. The smaller contractors are no longer in the system. So there was an article recently that says FedEx's divestiture of LTL business marks the end of conglomerate era. So what's this about? So the move signals return to core operations amid an industry shift. So what's going on here? FedEx's decision to spin off its LTL unit marks the end of an era that began nearly 30 years ago when major parcel carriers sought to provide comprehensive transportation solutions for their customers. This strategic shift reflects a changing landscape in the logistics industry and a return to core competencies for FedEx. The journey began back in the 1990s. Anybody remember that? FedEx acquired Viking Freight, a national LTL carrier operating primarily in the western United States. This move was soon followed by the purchase of American Freightways in Harrison, Arkansas, in 2001 for $1.2 billion, which expanded FedEx's LTL presence into the Midwest, South, and Northeast. These acquisitions were rebranded as FedEx Freight in 2002, creating a nationwide LTL network that complemented FedEx's existing parcel services. So this approach mirrored that of its chief rival, UPS. At that time, had acquired overnight transportation in 2005 for $1.2 billion, and it got into the LTL business too. The idea was providing a full suite of transportation services. These companies could capture more business from their existing customers and attract new ones seeking simplified logistics solutions. It also allowed for potential synergies between different shipping modes and the ability to cross-sell services. So that's what they told us back in those days. Hey, you'll be able to sell everything. Doesn't matter how or what you ship. You can get it done under the FedEx umbrella. Sounds good, right? However, the landscape of the transportation industry has evolved significantly since those early acquisitions. The rise of e-commerce, changing customer expectations, and the increasing complexity of global supply chains have reshaped the market. Additionally, the LTL sector itself has become more competitive with companies like Old Dominion, XPO, who got into the LTL business. So FedEx's decision to spin off its freight division follows a trend seen in the industry. In 2021, UPS sold its LTL business, UPS Freight. Anybody out there know that? They certainly did. They sold it for $800 million, a move that signaled a shift away from the integrated service model. Similarly, XPO Logistics has undergone its own transformation. Now everybody was putting everything together. Now we're splitting it off. However, much like FedEx, UPS eventually shifted its focus back to its core competencies as part of a strategic transformation to become the premium small package logistics provider. UPS announced the sale of Coyote to RXO for $1.02 billion. The deal, finalized in 2024, allowed UPS to concentrate resources on its primary business operations. Okay, so the point here is FedEx didn't just wake up one day and say, well, it's probably a good idea to take Express, put it together with the ground business. Oh, we'll sell freight, or we'll do whatever we're going to do with freight. This is part of a very long-term decision-making process. The industry's changing. There's all kinds of things going on here. The sale mirrors the industry's ongoing trend of divesting non-core segments to focus on areas of stronger expertise or higher growth potential. So what everybody's doing, the reason they're doing this, they're trying to focus on increasing their margins. The thing is, can FedEx Freight, can they have the highest margins possible if the company's not necessarily focused on FedEx Freight? So if you focus on it, it can get better. Down here it says the rationale behind these moves is clear. Companies are finding greater value, also say higher margins, in specializing rather than diversifying. The FedEx spinoff allows it to concentrate on its core parcel and express delivery services, where it faces intense competition from UPS, Amazon, and other players. By divesting the LTL business, FedEx can allocate more resources to areas like e-commerce fulfillment, international expansion, and technological innovation from its primary operations. So for the logistic industry as a whole, this move signifies a broader trend towards specialization and focus, which we said. It suggests that the area of mega carriers attempting to be all things to all shippers may be coming to an end. Instead, we're likely to see more companies honing in on their core strengths and seeking to excel in specific areas of the supply chain. Okay, the end of the 30-year experiment in integrated shipping services doesn't necessarily mean a failure, because that's not true. Everybody made money. Rather, it represents an acknowledgement that the logistics industry has matured and become more complex. As FedEx refocuses on its roots in the express delivery and e-commerce logistics, and the new FedEx Freight charts its own course in the LTL market, both entities will be writing the next chapter in the ongoing story of American transportation. So again, the bottom line here is the biggest part of FedEx shifting its focus to its core competencies is strongly encouraging service providers to run productive, efficient, safe, compliant, and yes, profitable operations that can compete with UPS and Amazon. They are not going to be able to do this without service providers. Okay, there's no, except in certain logistical situations, there's no plan anywhere in this business model to get rid of service provider or contractors. In fact, they're counting on the contractor competitive advantage, which is to be the low-cost provider Now, this is real important to be the low-cost provider of high-margin package transportation services. What does that do for you? If you're the low-cost provider in a high-margin environment, you can't be priced out of the market. It's a huge competitive advantage. Okay, so if you want to see why and how you can benefit from all this, we'll call it turmoil. It's not necessarily turmoil. It's the shifting transportation industry, shifting market. Or if you're wondering about Network 2.0 optimization and want to get ahead of everybody else, because there's some of you out there too, you can come to Huntsville in February and we'll show you how you can benefit from all these things that are happening. Or you can book an appointment with Becca to learn how you can get. And Becca, do you want to tell us about what they can get?
I would love to. Okay, so the business support system, go ahead and click the next one, please, is for service providers transitioning to Network 2.0, service providers expanding their operations to multiple facilities, service providers new to the business, and then lastly, service providers who are remote. Now, what's included in the business support system? We have 3 different programs. So the first one is Administrative Services Manager Program, so you can manage your time effectively. We also have the Optimized Performance Program, so you can maximize your efficiency. And then we have the Expense Management Program to control your costs. So they're focusing on 3 different areas of your business. But to simplify this, what it's doing is simplifying your payroll, HR, benefits, recruiting, finance, productivity, taxes, and accounting, time tracking, and so much more on top of all of that, all in one place. So what this is doing is it's going to enable the elimination of non-revenue producing activity. So you can focus on revenue producing activity. And I just want to add in really quickly, I know these programs are fairly new, but we are now at the point where we can get some feedback. And I can truly say we have many highly satisfied BSS clients. We had a few clients where this was their first peak season, and one client shared with us how eTruckBiz played an incredible role in the success of his business during peak season due to the support, guidance, and dedication offered within the business support system. Another not so new contractor had a major payroll issue, needed a solution right away, middle of peak season, high stress, and we were able to seamlessly transition his business onto the ASM program. And this particular client didn't want his employees knowing of any changes. That's just how seamless he wanted it. And we were able to do just that. And I can tell you he was extremely happy with the outcome. I would love to have some of our BSS clients on a future Tuesday webinar. That way you don't have to necessarily take my word for it, but rather straight from them and tell you about their overall experience with the business support system itself. But that being said, we are finding great success within the program. So if you'd like more info or to book a session with me, please, this is my contact information. You can just email me at becca@etruckbiz.com or asm.etruckbiz.com to book an appointment.
Yeah, first one was, of the transition terminals, do you know how many CSAs have been eliminated, a percentage?
They have to guess. I'd say maybe 5%. It's not that big. It's happened. Do you agree, Ken?
Yeah, I agree with that. And normally, and it's not the efficient, productive, good service providing contractors that CSA is being eliminated. Now, I would say probably 90% of the CSAs do change. Would you
Yeah,
agree
for
with that
sure.
number?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. It says, I am in the market to buy a CSA, but how do I assess the risk of Network 2.0 into the value equation? I'm definitely passing on that one. So I'll give that
Well,
one.
it depends on what you're looking at. So one of the things that they'll do, if you're looking to get in and you either before or even possibly before you get into a name meeting, they'll have you sign a disclosure saying that, hey, you can get in, but the CSA might change. They are actually doing that now. If they know that a particular CSA isn't going to be around, so let's say you got a contractor, he's trying to sell, and they know that CSA is not going to be available or something comparable is not going to be in the mix, they're not going to let you complete the purchase of that guy's business. They have to let you know. You can't buy something and then it goes away. That's not how FedEx doesn't want to do that. That doesn't get them anywhere.
Hey, Carrie, is there also an indicator with the length of the contract?
There definitely is. Just from negotiating experience, if a contract that is going under negotiation receives notice, and it's always in the MISO offers, that it is, what is the length of that contract? If it's less than a year, for example, 33 weeks or whatever, then that's a pretty good indication that terminal is going to Network 2.0.
Thank you. I think, Jeff, that kind of what said that is a limited horizon. I am on the point of a negotiation. So if you're on the point of a negotiation, you can see a lot with the length of the contract, as Carrie was saying. I hope that helps you out, Jeff. Okay. A couple questions. Can you see year over year comp for that drop?
The volume.
In the I don't know if that meant for the volume or drop in volume, yes.
Let's see. Hang on.
Year over year, the volume has grown, correct?
Yeah, it's not. It just we're thinking it's the weather catching up. We don't think it's something worse. Let's see if we can get back there.
Yeah, I think that was more kind of a weather thing. It's something that we believe should come back.
They don't have it on here. I don't have last year's peak on here.
But it finally just dipped below. That was the first week where it had dipped below the trend line, correct, Jeff?
Yeah, if you look at it was doing okay. And if you go back here, it was probably worse than this. But weather is a tough thing. You can't you can't do it's the weather. You can't do anything about it, right? You can't if everything's froze up and nothing's moving, everything's closed, it's what happens. We'll definitely see something next week as far as if this is a trend. We don't think it is. You guys out there, you can say something if you want. How's the volume this week? Is it pick back up? Is it remaining steady?
And I think that 25% increase in the rail volume is
Big
significant.
deal.
It says reflective of the 9 inches of snow in Florida.
I was just gonna say it's snowing in places it hadn't snowed before in a long time. So.
Us up here in Northeast Ohio are not feeling bad for you. Another question was, what type of CSAs are being eliminated? Which ones are at risk of their CSAs? You want that one, Jeff?
It appears that CSAs that have a lot of overnight, like 8:30 volume, might be most at risk. However, we can say this. Some of the folks where the CSAs have been either eliminated or whatever happened to them, those folks have been, in most cases, offered other CSAs. Sometimes they're in the same terminal service area, sometimes they're not.
Yeah, I think that's probably about the best way to put it. Majority of contractors won't be affected. You'll be affected just because 90% of the CSAs will change. You just have to adapt with it, whether it's grow your business, contract your business a little bit, or move your business. But the majority will be there. Okay.
Keep in mind, FedEx isn't trying to get rid of contractors. They, as we were trying to say before, they need good contractors. They need them, not just want them. They need them. In fact, what we're trying to tell you is they're going to push everybody, all of you on this call, they're going to push you to being more efficient, more productive, more everything, because they have to have that. This doesn't work without thriving, put it that way, contractors.
From what I hear, they don't want to split zip codes anymore. Yes, because they ask the route I am in negotiations to buy is split zip with a lot of express volume. The split zip codes will be eliminated one way or another. It'll be one CS in that zip code and another CSC that, and then the CSP will also, another one might be moved to another zip code, but there will not be split zip codes, correct, Jeff? In the new world.
If they can help it, no, they're going to try. They have to get rid of those because that's how you gotta. The service that they sell is by zip code, whether it's 8:30, 10:30, noons.
Yeah. As you saw, a gold level contractor lost his CSA, was given similar volume in another station. That will happen. Once again, they're going to align zip codes. Will Express have maybe a zip code to service for all of the volume in there? They might. I think we saw that in Little Rock, correct, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
But as far the gold level contractors are going to find a home. Have they built or expanded express stations to accommodate ground trucks in any location?
There's 27 the new latest version of the terminals. They built 27 of them. Oh, so
Yeah,
they
but
expanded express. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, mostly the express and ground is coming into one building where you'll have express drivers operate out of a ground building they might have an express, not a station manager, but an ops manager. And I think eventually that ops manager will report to the senior manager. That's what we saw in the Youngstown, and was it the other facility that spun off of Youngstown Hermitage? That's what happened there. Which is why everybody in the building has to be approved. What's the
TSA approved.
Yeah, TSA approved. And is that what happened in Huntsville, that everything's moving into the jumbo facility there?
Believe it or not, no, they're gonna keep two of the new one and another one open. I don't know. I don't know. Hey, I don't think when we tried to say this earlier, they're reconfiguring some terminal service areas, but the word out there is it's not necessarily over when you think it's over. So I'm gonna tell you about that.
So the only constant is change, is what you're saying?
For a while. I think they're doing what they're doing now, and that's a phase of it. And then eventually I know it doesn't seem like it can happen now, but eventually some of the earlier delivery times are going to probably come into play, like the 8:30s. They won't do that yet. They'll do that after they get the first part done.
One other comment, but now the FedEx folks have been told they may be moved around inside the market. So
It's happening. Yep.
a lot of great questions today. So this is a serious topic, one you need to prepare for, one we've been talking about. And in Huntsville, we're offering you a class that's going to help you see the financials behind the Network 2.0 for your business. And as Jeff stressed, FedEx is concentrating on the core competencies of their business, which you are the core competency of their business.
That's right.
So
That's
no
right.
doubt about it, because P&D and line haul make up more than 80% of their expenses. You got a little bit in your hubs, you got a little bit in administration, but P&D and line haul is where the money is. Okay. If somebody asked, FedEx employees moved around the market? Yes. He said that there's what's happening there in Huntsville, Jeff, with the express folks.
I think a lot of them got told, sorry, it's not going to be a job for you at some point in time.
So, and
It's
also
not just Huntsville, it's in a lot of other places. In fact, in a lot of markets, it made the news, right? It's either a newspaper article or some enterprising reporter has to go interview folks. So
Hit Lexington, Kentucky last week. They shut that one down coming up March.
one of the Huntsville CSP said we have a meet and greet Saturday morning to meet the couriers. So they are trying to get the couriers and the contractors together. And it's an opportunity for you to hire somebody with experience and make sure they know the difference between the two jobs, because they are different. But this is somebody who could be an asset for you to understand the critical time definites of the 1030s and the noons, and so they can be taught the rest of the business. And they've also told P&D managers and sort managers that they may be moved to new roles in a different terminal. And that's true. I said in the Youngstown facility here, the operations people from Express were dispersed between the buildings, but it was at the choice of the ground senior manager who he hired for the positions. So just as stressful as this is for contractors, it's stressful for couriers, it's stressful for management folks on throughout FedEx. So please understand that. And that's why you say, why don't they give us more lead time? When you're affecting somebody's livelihood, there needs to be some lead time, but at the same time, not 6 months, not a year. So that's probably the best way to put it. Once again, definitely encourage everybody to come to Huntsville. I think you'll find it enlightening. We ran a similar seminar a year ago in September. This one's a little more focused on the financials as well as some delivery driver methods. It's going to be beneficial for you, going to be beneficial for some BCs. Next question. Are the CSPs getting more money in negotiations? What the average lead times on letting CSPs know?
you can ask Carrie.
Are they getting more money? They're structuring the negotiations differently for CSPs that are going 2.0. So there's different things involved with it. And it also depends on how and if your CSA has changed. It depends on if you are going to get the time definite out of the gate. There's an additional charge for time definite. There's a structured tier charge for advanced service fees. So more money, most likely it's how you maximize the money that they're offering you that will make the difference in your operation. And then the second part of that, what is the average lead time on letting CSPs know? If you're talking about the lead time that FedEx has to let your station know they're going 2.0, then it's about 6 months, isn't it, Jeff? Would you agree
Yes,
or
ma'am.
disagree with that?
5 or 6 months, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Other than that early indicator on the length of a contract.
That is true also.
So that's one of the things we're going to do in Huntsville, though, is we're going to take it's a big, huge topic, but basically take your negotiation and then turn it into a budget, not only a standard budget, what FedEx thinks you should spend based on their standards, but then coming up with we're going to show you how we can do this for you or do it for you, but how to come up with a budget or an expense plan that you can use for the new CSA. Because that's one of the problems here, guys, is you do what you do now, that's fine. But when you when they modify a CSA, now all of a sudden, a lot of times you don't know what you're supposed to do. You don't know how many stops per dispatch you're supposed to have. You don't know what kind of revenue per stop you're going to have. You don't know that, but that needs to get sorted out. And guess what? They're not going to help you with that. They're just going to negotiate your charges with you.
Okay, here's another question. Any future seminar for TSPs by eTruckBiz?
Okay.
At this time, there's not a huge demand, but we're adding to the ASM program an ASM for line haul people, which would include some coaching in that. I think more rather than a seminar would be more of an individual coaching session. Do you agree with that, Jeff?
Yeah, honestly, the TSP world's not changing too much. It's its own world for sure, but it's not the big impact here is on the P&D side of the house.
Another comment was so far everyone in my terminal is getting 67-week contracts. My contract before was not 67 weeks, it was less. I think it was around 52 weeks. So I think, Carrie, you would agree that's probably an indicator. Then at the end of those contracts, they should be moving to Network 2.0 since it is the 67 weeks.
Yes.
Says, I am in transition now. I would highly recommend using eTruckBiz to help you transition. Do not go this alone. Their experience, especially Carrie's with contracts, is invaluable. So you got to send Matt a thank you card or a box of
Your
chocolate.
check's, yeah, your check's in the mail.
The new ISP contract starts in January. He is 67 weeks. Yeah, so that would make sense. Then he starts in January, so 67 weeks would be some early part of 2026 is when that station, Derek, would probably be going to the Network 2.0. I think that's probably a good indicator. Is Network 2.0 affecting P&D or line haul more or both equally? Jeff, I think you'd agree with this. Much more on the P&D side, but I think a lot of opportunities for dedicated runs on the line haul side. But yeah, on the line haul side, you have a safe driver show up at the scheduled run time and you go. And there's just going to be more of those scheduled runs in Network 2.0. So airport is not set for 2.0 state, and residents keep shooting down the expansion of the airport of the FedEx hangar. And I think that's a great example of FedEx having to change. They would love to drop that plane into an airport that can't handle that. So what are they going to have to do? Go to another airport and truck the stuff up there. I talk about Youngstown and Hermitage. That plane actually lands in Pittsburgh at the Pittsburgh airport, which is actually north of Pittsburgh. So it's convenient for Hermitage, and Youngstown, but it's still an hour 20 and an hour 40-minute drive to each of those facilities. So it will affect. It says Boston's at full capacity. They can't handle any more than what they get. Next airport is Connecticut. Yeah, just terminals being under one roof. New York and Florida seem to be the last to be able to combine even home and ground. That's because of real estate. So guess what? On the East Coast, real estate's at a premium and people don't like building airports. So, right.
They could use some drones over there.
Yes. So a lot of great feedback today, comments and answering questions and feedback to us. It's greatly appreciated. We kept you on here a little bit longer than we'd like, but hopefully everybody found this information valuable. We will be back here, maybe expand on some of this a little bit more next week. We'll also cover, really interested to be back here next week to see what the volume, see if it's recovered and it went back above that, the trend line, because the 25% rail increase volume's got to go somewhere. So we think it's going to end up on your trucks. So appreciate the comment. Jeff says this has been a very good discussion. Thank you. See you in February. Outstanding. Hopefully we'll see a lot of you in Huntsville in February. I know it's going to be warmer there than it is in Northeast Ohio. So we'll be back here next Tuesday. If we don't talk to you before then, please have a great, safe, profitable week. Thank you very much.